In this video, we're reviewing Fantastic Four First Steps and getting a little rocky with an earthy orange cocktail called Here's the Thing, today on the Martini Shot. Hello and welcome to the Martini Shot, the home of movie reviews and movie-themed cocktails. Before we get into the review, let's whip ourselves up a drink. So I held a poll over on my Instagram to see which Fantastic Four member should be immortalized in cocktail form. And to my slight shock, the Thing won. So I wanted to craft something orange and earthy by incorporating a few robust ingredients like carrot juice, turmeric, and chili liqueur. The final product makes for quite the interesting drink, but I think it's safe to say it rocks. Because he's made of rocks. That guy, the rock guy. Let's get into it. So first things first, we are gonna want to prep our glass before we start making the actual cocktail. We're gonna be adding a salt rim to a rocks glass, but for this particular cocktail, we're not gonna just be using any kind of salt. I'm gonna be using citrus salt, which is basically the combination of regular sea salt along with some orange zest. To make it, you pretty much just need a quarter cup of salt and about a tablespoon of orange zest. Mix all of that together, throw it onto a baking sheet, throw it in the oven, and let it sit for about an hour at 225 degrees. And then once you're done, you'll have this nice little mixture. So you can go ahead and rim your rocks glass with that salt mixture and then go ahead and set that to the side. Now you can go ahead and grab your cocktail shaker. First, we're gonna be starting off with half an ounce of fresh lemon juice, half an ounce of maple syrup, and then 1 ounce of a carrot turmeric juice. I bought mine at Trader Joe's. If you only have access to regular carrot juice, you can still use that, but also throw in a little pinch of ground turmeric. And now for our alcoholic ingredients. First, we're gonna be starting with a little bit of mezcal at a quarter ounce, half an ounce of Ancho Reyes chili liqueur, and then finally 2 ounces of a Blanco tequila. Now go ahead and throw some ice in your shaker and shake to chill. Then once you're done, go ahead and fill up your prepared glass with ice and strain your cocktail into it. And there you go, now you have Here's the Thing. Has such an interesting flavor palette to it. It's definitely very robust, like I said. That carrot juice brings in a nice little rootiness to it. And the same can kind of be said with the Ancho Chili Liqueur. It's made with dried poblano peppers, so it's kind of doing the same thing, while also offering a little bit of heat, while the mezcal is bringing in a tinge of smokiness. I went with a silver tequila for this just because I thought those botanical notes are a little bit more on the earthy side compared to something like a gin. But all these things together, they're earthy, but then there's also kind of like this chocolatiness to it. I do think a lot of that kind of comes down to the maple syrup that's in this. Makes it a little bit bolder, makes it a little bit more robust. And that smoked citrus salt that goes on top is so good. Just the smell of it kind of hitting your nose as you go in for each sip. It really kind of drives home that this thing rocks because of the rock guy. Now that we have our drink, let's get right into the review. For most of human history, it's generally believed that there is only one good Fantastic Four movie, and that's The Incredibles. For some reason, Marvel's first family has not had the best run of theatrical adventures. This dates all the way back to the 1990s when a film spearheaded by the king of cult Roger Corman was being developed, but was ultimately never released outside of bootlegs and restorations that you can actually watch today. They tried again in the 2000s with 2 films, but they just couldn't stand up against the age of Spider-Man and X-Men. And finally, one more attempt was made in 2015, and it was such a disaster that it kind of made the director have a full-on breakdown. I don't know, maybe the Fantastic Four were just Doctor Doomed to fail at every point, but maybe the Marvel Cinematic Universe could break the cycle. It's not like they've been on a march of mediocrity for the past couple years. But lo and behold, a good Fantastic Four movie is possible. First Steps was a solidly fun time that managed to give a familiar machine a new coat of paint. The characterization of these icons are phenomenal and endearing from the jump, while the retrofuturism feels fresh for the franchise and births one of the most visually unique and enjoyable films Marvel has produced in a long while. But like I said in my also positive review of Thunderbolts, this still doesn't feel like the game changer the MCU is looking for. Outside of the new characters and scenery, this is still the MCU formula at its core, doing little to break the mold by relying on bare minimum directing and writing that makes this feel like it could have been directed by anybody. It comes so close to making this feel like a movie about actual people, but like most attempts in the MCU, it just doesn't hit that mark. Even with my issues, this is still a good time at the theater, though for a film subtitled First Steps, I was kind of hoping these movies would be moving forward rather than staying in the same place. Set on an alternate Earth from the rest of the MCU, the Fantastic Four are the sole protectors of their planet, the safety of which becomes threatened by the imminent arrival of a space being named Galactus. With Galactus' intent to devour Earth made clear, the four must work together to solve an impossible decision to save the lives of everyone on Earth, as well as the recently arrived space baby. Look, I know we're probably all thinking we've seen a little too much Pedro Pascal recently, but his role as leader Reed Richards is just further proof of how good he is. He really does feel vastly different here from a lot of the roles we know him for, portraying Reed as a neurotic and overtly paranoid genius who tries to be ahead of the curve on everything. His drive to solve every problem put in front of him is both a gift and a curse, as his need to be analytical can often drive him to think with his brain when he should be thinking with his heart. And he knows this and is somewhat burdened by it as he comes to realize he cannot predict or prepare for everything. This is clear from the very first scene where he and Sue find out they're pregnant after giving up trying a year ago. Reed has a lot of parallels to Tony Stark, but the film does a solid job at differentiating them in minute but impactful ways. Reed is easily the most layered character of the group, and Pascal does a fine job at shutting the naysayers down. After Reed, I'd say Johnny Storm, played by Joseph Quinn, gets the second most amount of play. Portrayed as the proverbial little brother of the group, he is often straining to prove his usefulness not just as a Burning Man cosplay, but an intelligent being in his own right. He's highly cocky and confident in himself, but he puts in the work to add value to a situation beyond what is expected of him. As for the remaining members, Sue Storm and Ben Grimm, it feels like they kinda got shafted by comparison. Vanessa Kirby's Sue does have some big moments of emotion, but the film doesn't really delve too deep into the theme of motherhood with her, which is kind of what she feels saddled into later in the film. There's moments of strain between her and Reed, but at times they just seem to come out of nowhere as we're told of their issues rather than being shown them, causing quite a bit of whiplash. Finally, Eben Moss-Backrack's The Thing is honestly just kind of there. He's a joy to be around, don't get me wrong, but he's mostly given nothing to work with here narratively. He has a bit of a crush on a weirdly cast Natasha Lyonne, but that doesn't get fleshed out at all. I'm guessing they wanted to avoid him wrestling with the loss of his human appearance so as to not retread trampled ground, but it ends up making him feel like a side character rather than an integral part of the cast. The lean towards 60s inspired retrofuturism was definitely a solid choice for this new Earth, and I think it's pulled off super well. There's a lot of really neat stylistic designs here that pull from the era, such as the robot Herbie being reminiscent of cassette tapes, and deep space transitions being recorded on golden vinyl discs. The film does make some attempts to have this feel like a 60s film with its use of Technicolor and transitions, but unfortunately, it doesn't go all in. The visual style ultimately ends up being the usual affair for Marvel, but I will say the effects definitely feel a lot more polished and grounded this time around. A lot of the set design looks believable, while a gigantic man with a tuning fork helmet like Galactus looks incredibly impressive for the most part. There are moments of rubberiness, but I do think these instances are far fewer than what we've come to expect from Marvel nowadays. It's just a shame that while the film chose an interesting art direction, it decided to play it safe when it came to its narrative style. The story itself is fine and actually presents an interesting moral dilemma that, look, it's a Marvel movie, it's not gonna be that deep. But I kind of feel like the MCU needs more courage when it comes to its storytelling nowadays. They think it's all about introducing new characters while forgetting to give us anything that's going to surprise us. These movies aren't trying to be challenging or subversive, and that's fine, but there's gotta be more creativity in how these stories are being presented. The script really lacks a personality, with much of the writing being bland and direct, while the comedy managed to miss more than it hit for me. And like I alluded to earlier, there's no real sauce to the direction outside of the action sequences, and even then, sometimes the editing and structuring of it all just feels like autopilot. There's a certain unspoken emptiness to it, almost a fear to connect to us as humans rather than just fans. Comic book movies can and have been capable of this. I have my issues with Superman, but there is a genuine light of humanity to it. And while I enjoyed quite a bit of this film, it still mostly felt like it was checking boxes and painting by the numbers. With that being said, I do think this is one of the better Marvel films we've gotten in recent years. There's an undeniable refreshingness with the new world and even the characters at times. I just wish the creative vision came forward far more in the meat and bones of the film. If you aren't a fan of the MCU's factory line way of pumping out movies, this probably isn't gonna win you back on their side. But if you're someone like me, foolishly holding out hope that one day Kevin Feige will wake up and decide to put on a different hat, it's not the worst thing in the world. I'm honestly kind of interested to see what the foursome get up to in the future, but not too interested in whatever tomfoolery Avengers Doomsday has planned that's going to ruin everything. Did you know they started filming that and the script isn't even done? It's like starting to make a cake before the chicken has even laid the egg. For my rating, I'm giving this film 3 silver surfboards out of 5. Guys, thank you so much for tuning into this episode of the Martini Shot. If you saw the Fantastic Four First Steps, let me know what you thought about it down in the comments. If you like what you saw here and would like to see more, don't forget to like, subscribe, and follow me across all social media channels. Those links are down in the description below. And if you enjoy movie reviews and movie-themed cocktails, be sure to check out my website, martinishot.blog. Until next time, thank you again for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Live deliciously, but please remember to drink responsibly.